Welcome to the Conscious Marketer Podcast, the place for conscious entrepreneurs, teachers, healers, and authors who want to expand their reach and impact in the world. Join us and meet leading experts where we talk all things conscious marketing, launches, storytelling, and other strategies to help you serve more people. Find us at consciousmarketer.com. Welcome to the show. Hi, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Richard Tobinger, the CEO of Conscious Marketer and the host of the Conscious Marketer podcast. I'm also excited to be here with Kylie Slavek. She's my co-host and also the Conscious Marketer lead copywriter. Hi, Kylie. You here?
Hey.
I'm so excited to have today's guest on, Adil Amarsi. He's going to be talking about why people buy from stories and the deeper psychology behind it. Before we get going, you know, a lot of people that we're going to bring on the podcast you may not have heard of, and I think he might be one of those people. So let me just give a quick bio so that you know who we're talking to here. He's a copywriter, a business consultant, a podcaster, best known for his ability to write story-based direct response copy. Between 2007 and 2020, he's made his clients over $821 million in sales and revenue. And he's got parentheses here. The real number is 1.2 billion. So once you start writing copy and you start doing these big campaigns, they keep collecting money well beyond when the initial job is. So it might even be more than that. His clients have included Jay Abraham, Dove Baron, Tony Greibmeyer, and many, many more people and companies across multiple niches and markets. And his website is greatestcopywriteralive.com. That should tell you a little bit more about him. So I know, Kylie, you've known Adil for a while here. Do you want to kind of lead off with some questions? And Adil, welcome to our podcast.
Thanks. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Yeah, Adil, I think that one of the things that you and I share in common is that we're obsessed with storytelling, and we've been able to create some, industry defying results for our clients by really understanding that. And I know that one of the things that you're really good at is helping people find their core story. Tell us a little bit about how you discovered that and what it is.
To be fair, it was kind of your fault. Like, a lot of people don't know this, but like back in the day when Kylie and I were working together, just like talking all the time, we came up with the idea of actually creating something called the story selling blueprint. Now, over time, Kylie and I basically, because we're in two different time zones and we had our own clients and stuff to deal with, we couldn't actually get it to work in time, so I ended up running with it. And of course, I asked Kylie's permission. It was cool that we did so. And from there, I think it was like 2015 onwards, the term story selling became synonymous with just a few people. So me, Kylie, Ryan Schwartz, and I think a few other people, just a very core group of people who were using story-based advertising. And then Russell Brunson came along and he started adding it to his repertoire. So that's basically what we ran with. So the way that came up with the idea for the core story was because you and I had a discussion about what it is about a hero's journey and their origin. And I realized what it was with a lot of people. It's when you find out why they start doing something, you can quickly figure out why and how and who they've become along the journey, thus giving you probably one of the best stories out there when it comes down to understanding someone's advertising and, more importantly, why people should give a damn about them.
Yeah. So what is it? How do you do it? What's the thing?
Oh, it's like three really easy steps. So I have like a whole giveaway around this, but like really simply to give it to you guys, it's figure out, it starts with why did you start doing what you're doing? And look onto the other side on the far right-hand side of that spectrum and go, what is your point of no return today? Because there is a moment in your life, there's several moments in your life, but there's a very recent moment in your life in like the last, 12 months, where you would have actually hit a moment of no return. It's a bridge you just crossed where you can't go backwards. You're like, this is a new level that I now play at. It's a new thing that I now make myself do. This is who I've become. And you look backwards from that point and go, when I started, what was my driving force? What have I always done since I was a kid? What is that thing? And how is that extrapolated through my work to where I am today? And then you bridge that by looking at all the, there's like a 9-point system to this. There's like 9 points that you hit because every point of no return eventually becomes a milestone. And you look at the 9 milestones between, and you look at how you went from thought process of why you started your coaching, consulting, your healing practice to what was the next big milestone? What was the first bridge you crossed? Was it starting your business? Was it getting trained? Was it an incident that happened with a friend? Was it something that happened inside when you were healing? Was it something that you journaled about and it just clicked into place? Whatever it was, map it out. Because once you get to the other side, and again, I'm giving you guys a very quick rudimentary version of this, you map it out and you go backwards from there and you extrapolate into a much more deeper way of doing it. And that's why you create the infinite content matrix, or as I call it, the story selling matrix. Once you have understood the entire basis of this, you can essentially create infinite stories from it and go even further. Because there's something that's an expansion to this that I'm still working on that I can't really talk about just yet.
Geeky sneaky, huh?
Always gotta be. I might give you guys an exclusive, but
no, that's fine. You gotta keep it to yourself until you release it. That's awesome. And hopefully people listening today will go and check you out and find out when that is released.
For sure.
Adil, I think a lot of people, sometimes it's hard for them to see their own stories. And I've seen a lot of creators in our field kind of discount the importance of it. And you'll even hear like, why would anybody want to hear my story? Have you encountered that when you're working with people?
Plenty of times. I had a woman very recently tell me that what did she do? She said that she was a safeguarding trainer. So she basically made sure that schools, companies, office spaces were safeguarded. So like if someone had a problem, it would be easy for them to go and speak to a manager, for instance, or to a teacher or someone that is in power so they can help protect them rather than, they go talk about it. It becomes quite publicly well known inside the company. This person said something, they get ostracized. So they're essentially safeguarding someone along the way. I asked them why they started doing this. And their thing was like, well, I care about people. I've always cared about people. I'm like, okay, where did that come from? And the things are like, my story isn't worth telling. So I kept pushing a little bit further, and we finally got to the other side where we realized there was something that she went through she was bullied as a child. And because of being bullied by other kids and never really healing from that, it took her on a nearly 35-year experience where her life wasn't where she wanted to be. She was constantly being put down and she just didn't feel happy. It's when she broke free from that situation and recognized the patterns that she realized she could help other people find that safe space. And that was far more engaging than I just help people find safe spaces at work to I do this because I care about the mental health and well-being of people around me. So when someone thinks they don't have a story,
trust, yeah,
I was going to say, if someone thinks they don't have a story to tell, well, think again. And there's a very simple way that can help you think about this. And audience participation is wanted for this and needed. What type of movies do you guys enjoy? Like, what are some of your favorite movies?
For me, it's drama. I love dramas.
Could you give me an example?
Something like, I guess a good story one would be something like the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Okay, great. Kylie, what about you?
I like action and female spy stuff. So a lot of that stuff is more like Netflix series, like Covert Affairs and Chuck and things of that nature.
Fair enough. So I was going to say there's a similarity with both stories, and you'll see this. And I think Kylie will know this right away. I think you guys both will know this quite away, but it's quite interesting when you see it. What those movies have in common is you always want to have an origin story of your character.
Mm-hmm.
Even with the blonde lady with the nunchucks, like Atomic Blonde, for instance, wasn't there a part, like if you've seen Atomic Blonde, if there wasn't a part of you at the end of that movie that wanted to find out who she really worked for and what was really happening at the end, because it was a bit of a surprise ending. No spoilers, of course. You want to know more. Lord of the Rings. The whole reason there is an entire expansion of the lore and the origin of the entire Shire and Middle Earth is because J.R.R. Tolkien ended up getting told, hey, we want to know more about these characters. Who is Aragorn? Where was he beforehand? What happens after the ring? And they sort all this out. What happens on these insane adventures? Like, what about the history of this family and this character? What about this thing? And there's just so much there in the lore and history. And it's because we as humans are addicted to origin stories.
Mm.
So everyone wants to know where you come from, even if you don't feel like you do. And if you don't believe me, again, think about your favorite cartoon or TV show or anything you grew up with. And think about it. There is an origin story of that thing today that you've probably seen and enjoyed.
100%. It even works with like food. there's this brand, Amy's Organics, and it talks about on the box, like when Amy was a little girl, her parents didn't want to feed her unhealthy food, but they didn't have time to cook. And so there was no frozen food that was healthy. So they created their own little garden and froze the food. And now it's this big company today. And like when I was eating that, I don't eat it anymore. But when I was like obsessed. I'm like, Amy, this little girl, Amy, and her farm, you know? So I totally get that, what you're saying.
You have it with everything. Like have it with clothing brands and companies. There's everything from, like, think of a product, there's an origin story behind it.
Yeah, I think what's interesting is for me that I think you have a real customer when they can repeat back your origin story. And when they talk about you, they don't even talk about the product. They talk about the origin story. It's kind of like with Oprah. If you ask people if they know Oprah's origin story, they often can retell her story for you. It's kind of like you want people retelling your origin story for you, then you know you have a true fan or whatever it is, you know?
Yeah. And if you don't talk about your origin story enough, people are not going to know.
Yeah. There's no rapport building. There's none of that. No like trust factor that we're all so familiar with. Yeah. Adil, I'm super curious about something you said, which could be very polarizing, which I love about you. But you said that a lot of people teaching story selling are leading you in the very wrong direction and kind of setting you up for failure. Will you share a little bit more about why that is?
I'm going to give you guys a really simple example. Hi, I'm a person that had a really hard life and I had this really horrible thing happen to me until I found this magical thing. And then I went ahead and designed this incredibly cool thing. And guess what? Now I'm going to show you how to do it too. Give me lots of money, please.
Oh my God, that's the worst.
Now, does that sound familiar for everyone? Does that not sound like every origin story you hear online nowadays?
So bad.
I mean, I will fight anyone on this one. I'll argue with you all day long. I mean, find something that is unique about the majority of people. It's become so commonplace, it has lost its meaning. And you can see this in places like talent shows, such as X Factor or American Idol or anything. They all come with a sob story. That's what sold for a long time. We're done with that. If you keep thinking, oh, I don't have a story to tell because I actually grew up in a really nice house and my parents were kind to me. Okay, good. You have good self-esteem. Now figure out what it was. You don't need to struggle to teach other people how to feel good. You can literally say, look, I've had a great life. My life has absolutely been amazing. I've had every advantage under the sun. And guess what? I've worked with people that were disadvantaged. I've showed them how to change their mindset because the way my dad or my mom or my parents or my uncle, whoever it was, showed me a better way, and that impacted how I do things. So I pushed that same thing forward. I didn't have to go through the struggle because thankfully someone gave me the cheat code. There we go. That's another origin. So I was going to touch upon this. So we're going to go into a little bit of the exclusive because it's going to make sense here. There are 7 types of stories. And I don't want to rattle them off all right now because I don't have them in front of me and my brain can't remember them all anyway. But it's Christopher Brooker's 7 Basic Plots. If you look that up and just type in 7 Basic Plots summary, you'll see the 7 types of story, which are like origins. There's journey and voyage, rebirth, tragedy, comedy, and like 3 others that I can't remember right now. But you'll find nearly every story fits one of these 7 narratives. And essentially what you can do is you can talk about what you've gone through. So for instance, a really interesting rebirth story, like a lot of people can say, I went from having a really horrible time to coming back and going on this incredible journey and becoming better. Well, if you were a type of person before that was a good person and now you're a better person today because you've found yourself even deeper, well, that's made you more impressive. Like if I go back to the time when I first met Kylie, my origin story from then and now could literally, as a rebirth, could be back when I started out writing, back when Kylie knew me, when I was still halfway through, I think it was like year 7 or 8 of my copywriting career. While I was there was something inside of me that was just taking over, boiling over, and making me want to find out what made me better. So I rededicated myself to becoming a complete student of the human mind, specifically understanding why people think the way they do and how it relates down to stories, ideas, conversations, arguments, and more. And over the years of journey, I have not only gone beyond what most people would even realize, I've broken it down to a point where the language is so subconscious that I can speak it into existence. And I'm going to show you how to do just the same with half the time because there are only a few levers you need to shift internally to find the same transformation. That's rebirth. Because I've basically gone through a system and shifted all my old beliefs, changed my paradigms and become something else. Now, this gets even crazier when you look at the 7 story types and then combine that in with the 4 story pillar types, which I've just named. They are my own names, but they're 4 separate types of stories that basically come from 4 separate parts of the world that essentially give you a different definition of what type of story is told. Now, if you tell one type of story out of the 7 with one of these pillars, it sounds different than if you told it with another. It's very powerful. Again, I can't go into too much because, again, I haven't verbalized it enough in my head to teach it to anyone else.
Thanks for sharing. So you'd have 7 story types and then 4 pillars. So you'd have 28 potential lines of story. Is that right?
And then if you go even further to how my brain thinks, including this thing that I'm doing right now with personality typing, there's type in another 28. So whatever 28 by 24 is.
Okay.
So
cool.
28. Sorry, 28 by, hold on. There's 9, 9, 2, 18. 18 plus, sorry, my brain's going through all this other stuff right now real quickly. Hold on. No, it's 36. So basically 36 by 24 essentially is how many different types of stories there are that you can tell with the same tale.
Well over 1,000. I have a quick question for you. So you said that it doesn't have to be a struggle story or a trauma story, which I totally agree with. And in many cases, I steer people away from sharing too much trauma. But if there is a struggle and it's real, it's still okay to share that, but just not in that overly formulaic way. Is that kind of what you're getting at?
Yeah, I mean, you can still do it as long as there's an element of truth. Like, it has to be truthful. So if you went through like a hell of a time, like for instance, you literally lost everything. Everything you did for the last 15 years just was absolute dog crap. You never stopped going though. You finally broke through the other side. You understood what was going on. You built multiple businesses. You became extremely successful. And then now you came back to help more people. Or more importantly, you might have broken through. You've gone through a healing journey yourself. And now you're here to heal others. And you've just found what that truth is. Well, you can talk about the journey you took with your healing. Combine it in with how you overcame that in your day-to-day. And then at the end, show it. So for instance, I'll give you an idea. So give me a type of healer that you guys have worked with in the past. Like someone that you just know.
We do a lot of work with healers, empaths, and with many prominent therapists. For the example here, let's use a previous client that was a female medical intuitive.
Cool. Does she have like a struggle in her story? Because I want to show you guys how if there is a struggle, how you can basically tell the story in a different way.
It was.
Or can we make one up for her?
It was the sickness, but what do you know more about that part?
I'm not sure about that part. No, I'm not sure about that part. So
let's say she had.
Let's just hypothetical.
Let's say she had chronic fatigue.
Okay, she had chronic fatigue. She had CF. Okay. So the way I would do this would be very simple. Is I would only mention the chronic fatigue briefly. It would be something along the lines: discover how using medical intuition helped heal me. If you can use the word heal, but you wouldn't here. It would be helped alleviate my chronic fatigue and essentially set me on a path of healing others, completely backed by science. And it would be something along, like, as soon as we go through the headline, it would be something along the lines of, I don't know how long ago this was, maybe a decade ago. Let's say a decade ago, if you had told me that I would be able to feel as vibrant as I do today and have that happiness and joy, be able to go out and essentially spend less than 10 hours in bed a day, or less than 12 hours in bed a day, I would look at you and call you a liar because I knew exactly what my body was capable of doing and I would never be able to get out of the way of it. In fact, when the doctor told me that I was diagnosed with chronic fatigue, I just dealt with it and settled with it and moved on with my life as best as I could. This ravaged my relationships. It completely destroyed what I wanted to do in my life and left me completely destitute and emotionally destitute because I couldn't feel what I wanted to feel. And I was always looking for a way to help improve my body. Over the years, I started to stumble into something called medical intuition. As I started to really sit with myself and cultivate the practice in the way that I need to feel it and essentially allow my body to heal itself, I found that it alleviated a lot of my symptoms and gave me the clarity and the confidence to figure out what it is I needed to do. But working along with Dr. Norm, that's essentially when it really took another turn and went to a much better place. The reason being, while in isolation and using this strategy on myself only, as a way of seeing what results I could get, I was tracking them with Dr. Norman. In that, because I wanted to make sure that what I was doing wasn't just a phenomenon or a miracle just for me, but it was something that was repeatable for everyone and it was scientifically backed because I'm a skeptic and I need to make sure that what I share is 100% able to stand up against any criticism with perfect validation from the medical community. After spending 5 years, 2 years, whatever it is, in complete isolation, healing everything that I had, I started to find myself feeling more vibrant, more happy, and I was waking up earlier without an alarm. Today, I wake up after sleeping between 6 to 8 hours completely naturally whenever I feel like, and I have the most vibrant, happy life I've ever had. And the reason being, it's come down to understanding how to medically, intuitively heal my body and heal myself from inside. And this is something that we started to really reach out and help others do as well at the same time. This led to results like, and then you'd give results and responses from other people who've gone through it. You talk through the program, and then you'd go into like whatever your sales bit is on the discovery of what it is and how it essentially, not discovery, but like what the program is and how it helps people. And then you'd sell that idea to them. But that's essentially how you'd use a struggle story and not make it a struggle.
I love your brain.
Yeah, so that was amazing. Thanks. So it's almost like a struggle, but also a hero story, because it's like you can see her or him, whatever. Yeah.
The majority of people would take that story and talk about how chronic fatigue was screwing up their life and how deep and depressing it became and how much the struggle happened and how their relationships were so totally broken because their husband of the last 6 years decided to leave them for a much younger woman because the chronic fatigue started to get really bad. And they just start going to this deep, dark well of despair. This is the thing. You need to pull back from the dark well of despair. You need to only show people that, hey, look, there was a piranha pit that I climbed out of. Avoid that piranha pit because it hurts. So let's scoot to the right and go around. This is how we're going to do it. And by the way, for the people at home, I made that completely up on the spot. We didn't have any time to prep. But this really comes down to understanding structures in your brain. Once you understand these things, it becomes so easy that you can just think of it as it comes out. But again, I'm not saying what I'm doing isn't magical. It comes from study and practice.
Can you share some of the things, like if somebody was wanting to study copy, like what would be some of the top resources that you'd recommend that they turn to, or books or?
Oh, okay. So this is, you got to give me different budget levels here. Like you got to give me someone that has like a small budget, medium budget, and a high budget, because there's 3 levels to go through this.
Why don't we just start with somebody that has their own personal brand and has, say, a budget of $1,000 or something, and they need to just maybe buy some of the right books or maybe an introductory course somewhere?
Okay, I'm going to do one better there. So we're going to do 3 price points. We'll do 100, 1,000, and 10,000.
Awesome.
Cool. 3 different levels. You might be someone that's a personal brand at home. You don't really have a lot. You're trying to do everything yourself. Best $100 you can spend would be on the following books. You want to spend $20 on John Carlton's Kick-Ass Secrets of a Marketing Rebel. It is a very old course. I will give you that right now, but it will give you the fundamental truth of what you need to know about copywriting, essentially how the mind works, how to do your research, how to find everything that you need to do. It's a great $20 investment. To give you an idea, I paid $200 for this when I first got it. Other people paid upwards of $500 when it first came out. So you're getting it for $20. You're in the money. The next $80, the way that I would spend that I'd get the following book. It would be, actually, I'd spend about $10 on your favorite fantasy book that you could read over and over again that still makes you feel emotional, or fiction book that makes you feel emotional. And then I'd spend another maybe $10 on a good notepad. So that gives you up to about $50 right there, or $40. There's about $60 left. From that $60, I'd actually go ahead and invest that in ads. That's actually where I'd spend my money on that one. The rest of the money is $60. I take what I learned from John Carlton, basically what he teaches you there. Then I would go to the book that makes you feel emotional, get the notepad, and I would sit down and I would write down on that notepad. I would read it through once and let myself feel the emotions I want to feel: fear, anger, terror, happiness, joy, pain, whatever it is. If you want to cry, fucking cry. I don't care. Sorry, excuse my language there, but like that's basically it. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you feel something, and I want you to mentally write down and mark that part that made you cry. And then once you read the book, go back to those parts that made you cry and write down in your notepad, I cried, I felt this, I felt anger, I felt joy, I felt sadness. And I want you to write down why you think that is. And I want you to go deeper, because once you understand the emotional depth of why that book is there, and then combine it with what you pick up from Carlton, from like how he basically structures copy, from those 2 elements alone, you'll have enough to write a sales letter or even a sales message and start using like $5 a day for the first week, which is $35. And that'll give you a direct response. average. So you'll know exactly people are responding to you, if your stuff actually works. And if you've actually done it to go straight to a thing to like opt in or buy something, you can now make money off of that very, very quickly. And of course, this comes down to basic funnel building. But let's just say it's $100 and it's just you're trying to get people onto a mailing list and get them onto an email. That's how I'd spend $100. $1,000, I'm a little bit more cavalier about this. I'd want to push you to like $1,500 here because there's two reasons. Number one, I'd either pick up my course or Kylie's course, either one on writing copy. Mine is currently going through a revamp, but it's called the Copywriter's Room. Will be called the Copywriter's Framework once it's done on the 2.0. But essentially, right now, the first version will let you do this. Kylie's course is really good for understanding story and alchemy, by the way. Kylie, what's the name of the course? Please remind me.
Richard and I put out a course called Story Marketing Method a few years ago. We also have a course called The Power of Conscious Marketing with Sounds True, which I think is really good for story. But then Richard also adds the launch aspect into it. So it's pretty well-rounded.
Yeah. So like those, that would be a great place. I mean, if they're within the $1,500 budget, by all means, guys, go pick those up because they're incredible. And I can tell you whatever Kylie puts out is going to basically... it's going to blow your mind because the girl does not quit. She just puts in everything that's in there. Or the woman, sorry. The girl seems derogatory, but she's one of my best friends. I really... Yeah, I know. You and I don't, but I mean, someone out there, just whatever. Okay. And also, so with my course, it's more of a blueprint. It's basically the 17 steps that I came up with. Kylie was actually there when I came up with this because it was in Ryan Levesque's group. And what a lot of people don't know is I actually didn't have a presentation ready that day. I essentially created my presentation 10 minutes before I got onto that live training where I had to deliver this presentation that I just randomly made up about my methodology for writing copy. And that went on, and now it's become my structural piece, and it's something that I basically teach. So over the course of 3 hours, or 5 hours if you do the hot seat and the mastermind and the Q&A at the end, basically over a 5-hour period, you'll have every bit of knowledge of how I write copy, why it works, including templates and frameworks. So that's where I'd spend $1,500. It's $1,000 on mine, or if you get it on lower, because we have promotions around times. So if you get it on promotions between $750 and $1,000, and the rest of that money, what I would do is I just put it into advertising. If you can get a much cheaper course though, however, and you can get something around the $500 mark, because you're like, I want to spend $1,000 on advertising and only $500 on resources to really get good at copy. I'll tell you right now, Carlton's books are probably going to give you the best bang for your buck. Then you want to pick up books on psychology, like Robert Greene's books on power, strategy, why people think the way they do. The laws of human nature, definitely a huge win there. You also want to look at something, if you're reading this, you can create, what's it called? Creating Character Arcs, which is another great book. One of the books I would definitely recommend, Winning the Story Wars. Great book. I'm going to promote it as much as I can. Another good book would be Hooked by Nir Eyal. That's Eyal. That's really good for understanding how people's processes work from an analytical standpoint and view. And if you can get this, it's about $150. And it's only relevant to me because I have only recently rediscovered that it's there and I really want it. And it's Joseph Sugarman's Secrets of the Written Word. Advertising Secrets of the Written Word. It's basically every part of a letter, a mail order letter that Joe Sugarman has analyzed and tested. Basically, he has literally broken down everything for you. It's like single-handedly probably one of the best books on writing sales copy you'll ever find. And probably spend $195 on Eugene Schwartz's Breakthrough Advertising. Get those done. That'll leave you with about $1,000 left. Put an offer out and just basically start building your list and start mailing something to them. And if you're at the $10,000 mark and you're like, I got 10 grand to invest, hire a copywriter. I mean, at that point, actually don't hire a copywriter. Don't do that. Take a $1,000 course and then spend the rest on a copywriter. And here's why. You need to be good enough to understand what good copy is and bad copy is so you're not hoodwinked. And you'll be able to spot a real copywriter from a fake once you know what you're doing. If you don't know what you're doing, you're a mark, and they will literally take your money from you and not deliver, and then they will just not give you your money back, and you'll be like, oh my God, I hate people, which you don't want to do. Whereas if you do your due diligence, you'll be fine on the other side and come out quite happy and smiling because you'll know what's good and bad. And if they make mistakes, you can quickly edit them and tweak them without really having to do much. Though my personal suggestion here is run what the writer says first before you make your tweaks and edits, unless it's blatantly really, really, really bad, to which get your money back, or at least give them another chance to write and then see if you can get your money back. But essentially let them run their version first because they would have picked words that you might not be okay with. And that sometimes means that they're right and you're wrong. I mean, I've had it enough times where clients used to fight me on, we can't mail that. That's not what we say, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, you got to mail it. It's in the contract. They'll mail it. And they're like, okay, we made 10 times more money and people are way happier with us. I'm like, exactly. You guys are only selling to one emotion. I'm selling to 4. There's a whole different way of doing that. So, know your audience and do what you do. I hope that answers the question. Like, what I would do is resources.
That's an amazing answer. And I think you've kind of laid out a map for anyone wanting to kind of at least dip into this world. Sometimes I say it's kind of like really important that the creators get in front of the brand and they don't devalue their stories. I know some people are, you'll hear it shouldn't be about me. They're just a little more hesitant, or even you'll hear like, I don't want to be the marketer. I just want to be the creator. Do you ever get that? And how do you respond to that?
It depends. If I have someone that says, I don't want to be the face of this company, I just want to be the marketer behind it. I want to be the creator behind it. I just want to do that. Mm-hmm. I'm like, cool, find a face. Find a face that is similar to yours and hire them. Make them the face of your company. Or even as far as it is, find someone that you can work with. If you're like at the point, I can't hire anyone, but I don't want to be the face of my company, and I'm really like at this point. At that point, I'm going to sound really mean, and I apologize, but suck it up, buttercup. Go out there and get your money and then basically replace yourself. I mean, that's the smartest thing you can do. Or partner with someone that's completely okay with being trained by you and then becoming the face of your company. But at the very beginning, your job is to
sentence
sell.
that includes the word buttercup. You're not being mean, you're being kind.
Buttercup. So. Yeah, we love
it. But yeah, I mean, this is what I'd say to people. Just, if you're not comfortable being the face of your company, you can step down. I mean, I wasn't comfortable being the face of mine for absolutely ages, but then I started to put my stuff out. My stuff was because I thought I'd get found out as being a fraud because I didn't know what I was doing and I sucked and all this, that, the other. I mean, none of this is true, but like in my own head, it felt like it was true. I mean, to give you an idea, in my entire marketing career of like 14 years as a professional copywriter, I've lost about 500 campaigns. Like I've lost 500 times in my entire career, which is a lot. But compare that to over the 16,000 plus victories I've had, it evens out. But do you think I look at the 16,000 plus victories? No, I look at the 500 losses and I get mad about that.
Right.
Because as humans, we're like destined to always go back to what we feel is weak. So my advice to you is just create a winventory. Or as I'm stealing someone else's words, I don't know who came up with that, but it's a great term for winning the inventory. But every time you get a win, write it down, increase that comfortability and go out there and basically share those results. If you're scared of being the face of your company, this is how you get around that. If you don't want to be the face of your company at all, you don't want to do any of that, teach someone else enough of your methodology that they can repeat it, but you're the one that's created behind the scenes and you take the bulk of the money.
Yeah. Okay.
I could listen to you talk all day and we are running out of time here, but you have provided so much value. Like every time I talk to you, I'm just like, oh, just made another 100 grand right there, if not more, it's so awesome. I love your brain. Do you have any sort of parting words for the folks who are listening? And again, a lot of them are healers and coaches and entrepreneurs trying to do good things in the world. What would you say to just put some wind in their sails today?
Look at what you do as you're going to do it anyway. Like, don't be like, I don't feel like doing this. Just do it. Which really sucks because sometimes you really don't want to do things. I'm a person like that. If I don't feel like doing something, I just don't do it. But what I'm telling you is sometimes you just got to kind of go, you know what? I'll just start. I'll just do one thing and I'll give myself a break. By the time you start that one thing, you would have got like 2 or 3 things done. And then you just keep going and then you feel better and you're happy and everything works. So words of encouragement, start believing in yourself, create that inventory, which I'm totally stealing. It's someone else's words. I think it was Ryan Hunter that said that. So props to him. Create that. Count your wins, count your blessings. Listen, read back the testimonials. Look at the people that have paid you money for the transformations they've gotten. And if you haven't gotten someone a win in like a second, like for instance, your last client, they just, whatever it was, something didn't happen. They didn't click. It just didn't, life happens. You didn't align. Count that as a blessing, as the lesson that it was. Say, thank God for that, or whatever it is that you believe in, and move forward. Be grateful and move forward. That's the way you do it. So that's advice piece number 1. Advice piece number 2, that'll put wind in your sails. You are important. Your story is important for the world. Right now, more than ever, we need more positivity and happiness and joy in what we're doing. Right now, the world is kind of going to hell in a handbasket. I mean, physically, every empath on the planet right now, and I can tell you from Kylie to Richard to myself and everyone else that we know, you can feel it almost like a slight tension in your shoulders. Like, man, the world is really tense today. So brighten the world up, give value, make people smile. And by the way, that's my number 3. You hear the terms give value first, give value first. I'm going to define what value means right now. This is the best definition of the world. Okay, you ready? Write it down. Change someone's life for the better. And by that, I mean, make them smile. Making someone smile adds value. Telling someone a funny story adds value. Letting someone know that it's safe for them to share who they are adds value. Being vulnerable and sharing a part of your story that's real, that basically is okay for you to share because not everyone wants to hear it, but you're inside the comfortable people that you want to hear it, share that. That'll add value to someone else. So do those 3 things, enjoy yourself, and by the way, quote yourself a little bit more, write down a little quote if you come down with it. Enjoy that. And fourth final thing I'd say, on your screen, wherever it is, somewhere in your line of sight, write down 2 things on Post-it notes, please. Number 1, I love you. Say that to yourself and write it down so you have it and you see it. And number 2, I'm doing the best I can given where I am. Because giving yourself a break when you're going through some stuff is the best way to let yourself to keep going. Because you'll either be too hard on yourself and you'll burn out, or you'll be too soft on yourself and you'll never get started. But reminding yourself that you're doing as best as you can given the situation will allow you to keep moving forward or resting with love and without judgment. So keep those in mind.
I love that, resting with love and judgment, without judgment. That's awesome. I think I've heard somebody say people won't remember what you said, but they remember how you feel. So that kind of taps into your number 3 there, which is, make people smile and bring them up, not down.
Exactly. And finally, if I may, can I just plug one thing to you guys?
Yeah, do it.
Cool. Earlier in the show, when Kylie started to ask me how you come up with core stories, if you guys head on over to greatestcopywriteralive.com, you guys can opt in and get the full expanded version of this. It's like a 6-page PDF with like a 7-minute video that shows you how to break this down and go through your own stuff in a little bit more depth than I had time to go in today.
Yeah, that's awesome. So that's Greatest Copywriter Alive, and we'll also put that link in the show notes, and you can get those show notes at consciousmarketer.com. Go to the podcast, and you can get the show notes and get the links and stuff for all the resources that Adil recommended here. So I really appreciate you being here. It's been a pleasure getting to know you more. Thanks so much for coming on. It's been amazing.
Thanks for having me. And guys, as always, real quick. Sorry, Kylie.
I was just going to say thank you.
I was going to say, I'm glad that I was here. And real quick, guys, please rate, review, and subscribe if you enjoyed this show, because Conscious Marketers bringing out more cool stuff.
You're the best. Subscribe. You're such a genius. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
We appreciate you. Thanks so much.